get you out the way. Go hard, it's the only way to play. Let me say, I'm a trendsetter. I'm a go-getter. I'm a trendsetter. I'm a go-getter. I'm a trendsetter. Who can do it better? I'm a go-getter. I'm a trendsetter. Hey, look, they keep calling me, cause you ride this beat, look proud of me. Okay, it ain't no problem, see, I can mold this thing like pottery. Better, I'ma bet on myself. And for the top, and I don't need your help. We set the tempo, we run this thing is simple. Let's go. Boy, I'm locked in. Know your place, I'm top 10. And all my haters watching, so you know I keep on clocking. Let's go. My whole style of go. Take my place, I hold mine. Run up in this go time, it's show time. Yeah, they know I'm the one that set the trends, dog. Tell them tenfold, I'm gonna chase the tempo. Okay, tell them I can't play it safe. Got more wins on the way. Gotta show them how to do it. Man, my team.
I promise you guys aren't gonna get this anywhere else, man. That's ball. We party all the time, anytime, because you know that's what you do when you talking about arguably the best division. You know,
absolutely
from top to bottom in the National Football League. Welcome everybody to another edition of the Fear of the North podcast, episode 13. Let's ball. Great job, guys. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you. And usually Tuesday nights is we like to do, but this week we had to pivot to Wednesday. But still, we appreciate you all for coming in to be here, listen to us talk about some AFC North football. A lot to dive into right now. A lot to dive into within this division, because we're coming down to the final weeks of the regular season. Week 15 just passed, so everybody's really got 3 more games left. It's getting close right now, man. It's getting real spooky. You mean scary hours in this zone. And when you look at the AFC North specifically, you got the Steelers that are 10-4, and they're just a game ahead of Baltimore, who's 9-5, and then you got Cincinnati that's still in the hunt. Mathematically, they're still in the hunt, 6-8. They still got a chance. They just will have to win out. The Browns eliminated. There's not much more we'll speak on regarding them. That'll be for later on. Don't worry, Sapphire. Me and Chris will take the gist of that, because I can already tell. We don't want you crashing out live. Maybe later on, but not live. I'm right there with you. But let's dive right into it, Chris. I can't wait to get your take on this, because the fact that you were there. And actually, here, wait a minute. What am I doing? Gotta do intros. Everybody, my name is Irie Harris. I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Sapphire, established author and journalist Chris Murray. Kyler Murray took his name from him. That's how cool he is. You mean? And we are the Fear of the North podcast. So let's dive right into it. And Chris, mentioning him being established, Philadelphia Sun is who he writes for. He writes about the Philadelphia Eagles. But he also has the outlook inside regarding the Baltimore sports, the Baltimore Ravens, growing up in Baltimore from the coast of the Ravens. However, he was there at the game for the Eagles-Steelers matchup, so he can really talk about it from a first-person experience of being there. Chris and Sapphire, Steelers travel to Philadelphia, state championship, someone call it, regarding Pennsylvania, and they lost 27-13. And a big highlight, which I know that we'll speak about a lot, was the fact that the Steelers in the second half only had the ball twice. And within that total of 11 plays were ran, and the Eagles ran out the final 10-29 of the game through 21 plays within that final series, and the Steelers never touched the ball again. Opening thoughts, Chris, within this game, the Steelers' performance and what went wrong for them.
Well, what went wrong was a lot of things. Number one, I think Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, 23 targets between the two of them, and they both caught passes for 100 yards. A lot of things from the Steelers' perspective went really wrong. One of them is time management, but I'll get to that. But the Steelers, I think the Eagles out-physical them, and that's a rare thing. The Eagles out-physical them in the first half. They didn't run for a lot of yards, but the secondary couldn't do anything with A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith or the tight end that they had in the game. They just could not do anything with them in the passing game. And I think, Jalen Hurts probably played that game with a bit of a chip on his shoulder and it was kind of directed at maybe Phil Eagles fans and some of the people in the media. Excuse me, people in the media, because everybody kind of got on Jalen Hurts the previous week, even though he made all the requisite plays to win the game. They got on him last week because because he only passed for 108 yards. He threw 2 touchdown passes. He accounted for all the scoring, and it in effect won the game. But it wasn't enough because AJ Brown said, "Well, we got to pass more." And they ran the ball well, and so I guess it was a diva moment that the media took completely out of hand. It became a referendum on Jalen Hurts' ability as a passer. Every time he slips up, he wins the game. He wins the game, and every columnist in the city wants to say, well, or every fan, well, this could have costed us during the playoffs. And I'm like, football is not meant to be pretty. And the Pittsburgh Steelers found that out on their own end. They were down 17-0, or 7. Yeah, they were down 17-3. They made a valiant comeback to close out the half. But the Eagles had the ball. And in the second half, the Eagles dominated the ball. And the Steelers only had the ball maybe once or twice in the third quarter. And I think maybe twice. No, maybe once in the third quarter. And when they got the ball in Eagles territory, what's his name? The running back was it Jacobs? Not Jacobs. The running back for the Steelers, the kid out of Alabama, could not hold on to the
Najee Harris.
Najee Harris. That's right. I'm sorry. Najee Harris fumbled, and that would be their last possession for that third quarter. In the fourth quarter, when the Eagles went up by 2 touchdowns, the Steelers got the ball back, and they moved that they had a 4th and 7 from the Eagles 45 with 10:40 left in the game. 10:40 minutes. 10 minutes. Now, when you're down 2 scores, you should probably go for it, because you don't know how possessions are going to go in this game. Excuse me.
Right.
You don't know how possessions are going to go in this football game. And at the end of the day, you got to bet you're down by 2. Not only are you down by 2 scores, excuse me, you're down by 2 touchdowns. You are down by 2 touchdowns. Okay. So inexplicably, they punt the ball, and they never saw the ball again. Never saw it again. And of course, everybody, and then as I was scrambling around, I tried to get to the Pittsburgh Steelers press conference because I had to get Eagles guys and whatnot. But I was trying to find out, because I was going to ask Mike Tomlin the question: what were you thinking in that situation?
Right.
And my thing is, if I'm Steelers fans, I'm ticked off, because you're up by 2, you're down 2 scores with 10 minutes left. You got to make your rally now. You got to get, you're down by 2 touchdowns. You got to rally right now. You got to do it now. And all the Mike Tomlin critics came out of the woodwork. They came out of the woodwork to say, dude, the Steelers aren't the best team in the red zone anyway. But, missing Pickens is really hurting them right now. That's another thing that kind of came out of it. But you don't even give your offense a chance to get back in the game. I don't get that. And basically, kudos to the Philadelphia Eagles. They have won the honorary 5th team in the AFC North award and whatnot, because they managed to play 2 physical games within a space of 2 weeks against Baltimore and against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, and so from that standpoint, that was a question that I asked Jalen Hurts at the end of the game. And I asked him the question at the end of the press conference. he said that that the Eagles kind of resemble they play that style.
Yeah.
They play that AFC North style and
Yeah.
whatnot.
They have all the stones. The Eagles
Right,
have all the stones of the teams of the AFC. I felt a lot about that game. I did pick the Steelers, by the way. Okay.
Me too.
But Chris, yeah, you called that. It was a very difficult game for me. I'm very happy, obviously, because as much as I talk about the greatness of the Steelers, and it is there, I'm a diehard Browns fan. So I was pleased with the outcome, right?
Yeah.
But what was curious to me was my perception of the progression of things on the Steelers side. And we talked about this, across the week, but I am so curious to understand from both of you if you sensed that the Steelers may have gotten to a point in that game where they clicked into a different mode because they were thinking about their next game. What are your thoughts on that?
Irie, I'm going to let you go ahead and answer that one. And then I'll answer it after you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think there is a possibility within that. I'm not going to say they stayed when that was their mentality the entire game, but by some point, and to Chris's point, when they realized that the Eagles were out physically them and being more aggressive throughout the duration of the game, and probably within that last series when they realized they weren't going to get the ball back, then they more than likely were thinking ahead to the next game, because even though Philly was stable and scored in each quarter, like the first quarter was still a game. Like
right.
it was still within reach. And like even thinking back to that series that Pittsburgh had throughout the second quarter, which ended in that touchdown from Wilson to Pat, like that was their most productive series by far of the game. That ranged at just around 6.5 minutes. And that's something else too I thought about, because going in, these were two of the top teams when it comes to holding onto the ball, taking their time within moving downfield. Like they're both ranked. Pittsburgh ranked first within average time of possession, excluding overtime. Philly was fourth, and then right after this week, Pittsburgh moves to second. Philly moves to first. Like both of these teams knew the game plan, they knew what they were doing, and not to go off rails, but as well, Chris. That's such an interesting point you mentioned regarding Jalen Hurts saying that their style of play does resemble the AFC North, because Nick Sirianni, head coach, is from southwestern New York. He was born in Jamestown, and Jamestown is not far from Cleveland. It's not that far from Pittsburgh. So was that, and he played his college ball at Mount Union, which is part of the OAC, a collective of Division III schools within the state of Ohio. So what that lets me know is two things. Number one, he grew up watching that style of ball, and two, that's what he wanted his team to resemble, and that's why they've been playing the way they have right now, and you see that in there. So I think that's really good info and very interesting going forward, because you do see that in a way that this team plays. But yeah, regarding your original question, Sapphire, I just feel that I wouldn't say so. Would you say so, that they were thinking ahead to their next game Saturday versus Baltimore?
I'm not gonna say that, because Mike Tomlin knows better not to be looking ahead, like not in that game. Mike Tomlin knows not to, and because you want your team to be sharp against, because you're coming into into a game against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens got that chip on their shoulder. This is the opportunity before a national stage for Lamar Jackson, because the rap on Lamar Jackson. The rap on Lamar Jackson is that he can't win the big games. He can't beat Pittsburgh. And this is his opportunity. This is the big game. This is the biggest game of the Ravens season to this point. He has to show, he showed it before but he has to show in front of his hometown fans that he can beat Pittsburgh. And I think he needs to exercise that demon of Pittsburgh. They may play one more time in the playoffs, but he has to exercise this demon that he seems to have, because you notice in the first Pittsburgh game, he was missing receivers. He just was out of sync. In their last, in their last loss to the Eagles, it was the same thing. He, on the first drive, everything went well, and then he missed a couple of receivers, and it kind of spiraled. And I think they really have to go in and get physical on this Steelers defense, because I think that Steelers defense is tired. But I know we know Mike Tomlin well enough not to, because he's not the kind of coach that's going to look ahead. And that's my opinion. Mike Tomlin is not going to be that kind of coach that's going to look that's going to basically say, okay, let's just look ahead. I mean, this is not the NBA when you're down by 30 and you're just trying to rest your starters for the next game and whatnot. I think Mike Tomlin is a competitor, and he wants to win that game. And my thing at the end of the day, Lamar's got the chip on his got the chip on his shoulder, and he needs to play. He needs to, and he needs not to try too hard. He needs to know when to take over that game, But, I think the Steelers are going to come in ready. It ain't going to be easy. They ain't going to give it to you. And, Tomlin will have his guys ready. They'll be ready. It's going to be a game. They're going to be ready. They're going to be ready for y'all. They're going to be ready. And at the end of the day, I mean, I expect a tough game. But this is the kind of game I want to see Lamar not just blow him out or anything. Although I would love to see Lamar blow him out. Oh, I would go out and buy a dozen cigars and smoke them all in one night. Of course, I'll get sick and all that. But the thing is in this situation, he's got to prove. I mean, he's got to prove it in that situation. And if he has to kick for Justin Tucker, then he's going to have to do that. But he's got to prove it. But I think Tomlin's going to have them ready by next week. I mean, they're not going to play this badly and when it comes to Baltimore, because it's Baltimore week.
Well, go ahead, Sapphire. Please.
Yeah, Sapphire.
Well, I asked that question because guys, you want to talk stats, we can talk stats. What I submit again makes our podcast different is that I'm going to contribute things from that fan perspective as well. Okay. I'm going to give Mike Tomlin his ultimate props because his post-game presser said it all. I think, was it 4 minutes, Chris? Did it last that long? The Steelers were not prepared for that game against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay.
They weren't prepared. And he owned that. He talked about the failures top down. Coaches, staff, whoever all is involved up in the corners, okay? They did not walk into the link prepared to play that game. Number one. Number two, I just think about the timing of a couple of other games that, based on those outcomes, right, pretty much secured a playoff berth for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number two.
Okay.
And I think after that, number three is if I'm a player in that game on the Steelers side of the field, and I get a sense of what the outcome of those games were, and I knew that my team, as a result of that, secured a playoff berth, would I be giving my 100% at a time in that game? Let's talk about the third quarter. I think Steelers only had one possession in the whole third quarter.
Right.
I wonder if it could have been, even for a fleeting moment in time, a thought in any of the Steelers players' mind, do I really need to play to the extent that I know that I can in this game? Technically, you want to say up one game if you knew what the outcome was, or technically two, because I know my next game is in Baltimore. I'm just saying, gentlemen, that's where my head landed. Because I just, and that, what is wrong with Justin Fields? What was wrong with his abdomen? What was the injury?
I think he had some type of strained abdomen because I think he was trying to twist his body. And that kind of happens because he's trying to fight for yardage. But
Okay.
The way that I look at it, though, Sapphire, is that iron sharpens iron, and you want to come into the playoffs on a roll. You want to have the momentum, and you want to have that momentum on the road come. And it would have been a good thing to get a road win, because I think they'll come into Baltimore with a little bit more self-confidence, and I think they will improve themselves. But I think coming into Baltimore, I think that they're gonna either be really ready for that game in Baltimore, or I think is going to linger, because what the stuff I'm reading and seeing out of the Pittsburgh media is that their fans are concerned about the fact that the Steelers aren't going to be, that the Steelers aren't a good playoff team, even though we haven't gotten there yet. I mean, even though they're in, they believe, some of their media people believe that the Steelers aren't as good as past teams, and they kind of think that Mike Tomlin is a terrible coach or something like that, but which I disagree with. But I think at the end of the day, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have to come in there. They got to show that they're ready. I don't think Mike Tomlin is not going to prepare that team for that game. That is going to be a rough and tumble kind of a game. And, it's going to be one of those things that's going to be decided in the fourth quarter. But I don't know what Tomlin – I don't know about Tomlin. I mean, I think that right now the Ravens have a chance to make a statement and everything. And I just think that they have a chance. They have a chance to make a statement. And I think maybe Pittsburgh is a little worn down trying to deal with the physical nature of that Eagles offense in both the passing and running game.
Well, let me just ask this right quick, because could it just be, and Sapphire, you can attest to this because we were talking, and one thing Thomas said within the postgame when asked a question regarding not letting the steamroll into more losses was just kind of annoyingly responding that, like, hey, this is one game. Like, let's not lose our marbles here. Could it just be a sense that the Eagles are that good of a team because of the fact that, keep in mind, they did sweep the entire AFC North this season? They did beat everybody in the division.
Okay, so for the reason that the question you just asked, and for what Chris just said, I'm going to go back to that question. Could that be the remotest possibilities? Listen, if I'm already ahead of the game in terms of the position in the division, right, by 2 games at the start of that game on Sunday, right? That game progressed the way that it did. Yes, the Eagles out-physicaled the Pittsburgh Steelers. They absolutely beat them down. Mm-hmm. And for that reason and more, those other reasons I touched on, it just crossed my mind. Would it be a remote possibility that any of those players had it in their mind where they needed to just pull back a little bit because they still have 3 more games left, right? Yeah. Chris, you asked earlier in the week, you asked about why Tomlin wouldn't go for it on, what was it, 3rd or 4th down?
Fourth and 7 from the Eagles 45.
Right. In his post-game presser that I recall, he talked about having some other people in his ear at the time.
Yes, he did.
And he followed that up with quote, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Come on, guys.
I'm going to say about Mike Tomlin, for a guy who doesn't like to use excuses, that's one of those things. That's one of those things where I think Mike Tomlin botched that whole – he botched it. He botched up a whole thing in terms of timing in the first half as well. But you got to basically – that you can't think, because you're trying to win a division. Because now – if they come in 2 games up in Baltimore, might be stuck if they lost that game. But Baltimore, the more that pressure is on Baltimore. But now that pressure is going to be on the Steelers. But all those sacks and stuff. I mean, all those situations that we talk about and whatnot with terms of winning. Now the Ravens are in position to tie the division, and I don't know what the conference records are now. When you had a chance to pretty much close the deal, now you're gonna have to fight a dogfight, and I think you gotta be competitive. You gotta be competitive coming into the next game, and and that was shocking to me to see the Eagles do that 10-minute and 29-second rushing job. I mean, not rushing job, but drive to close out the game, in which they mixed everything up. I'm shocked at that. I'm shocked at Pittsburgh, and then too, we don't know if I mean, my thing is when you got a chance, Sapphire, to take a team out like the Ravens by winning games and all that, you got to take them out. You can't leave a team like the Ravens an opening, because if they get an opening and they take advantage of it, they are gonna come back to questioning the coach. But in that situation, we don't know that. But this is an opportunity, because the Ravens win on Saturday. If they win Saturday, they're a game behind, and they're in position to win this division. They're in position. So I think that, in answer to your question, Sapphire, my thing is, maybe they relax, but you can't relax. You cannot relax. I mean, you got to get that division, because they're still slightly in the hunt for. They're still maybe 2 games back in the hunt for home field advantage. You never know what can happen in these games. So from that perspective, from that point of view, you don't. I'm a firm believer. You play every game hard and whatnot. You play every game hard, and win the conference championship and all that other stuff. But you got to play. I don't care what the numbers look like. I still remember the 76 Raiders Super Bowl team had a chance to lose to the Cincinnati Bengals, and if they lost, they would have kept the Steelers out of the playoffs. They said, "Nah, we're gonna play this thing to win." Okay, and they did that, and they won the world championship. And that's what you have to do. You gotta. I don't care if the Ravens were 3 games back. You got to close out that division, and you can't. And you can't be thinking about it and everything. You just got to close out the division and then get ready for the playoffs and everything. But I don't necessarily like how if we look at it from that standpoint of how Pittsburgh really handled that situation. 4th and 7. You still want to win the game, because there is a slight possibility you could get home field. It's slim and none, but you still have that opportunity. And that's the most important thing, is to have the opportunity to not only close out the division, but you're also in that fight for home field. Okay, you gotta have something and you gotta come in playing with a certain level of swag coming into the playoffs.
You do. Sapphire, it looks like you got something to
No,
say.
I mean, I hear all that. I get really agitated when I have to go to these places, gentlemen. You both know me. All I'm saying is, there's something to be said about being strategic, right? Looking at where you're at the moment in the season that you're playing in, the rest of your schedule, and it just smelled funny to me. The whole second half, the way that the Steelers played. And I'm going to give all props to the Eagles. Don't get me wrong. But it just with the dynamics, with the outcome of the Houston game, the outcome of the Colts game, what Tomlin said in the post-game presser, the Justin Fields, whatever that was, the only thing that I know 100% is that J.J. Watt was injured. And he is fighting the good fight to get back in a position where he could even think about playing in that game on Saturday. That's the only thing that I know for fact that went the way that looked, was what it was. That second half of that Steelers game, the way they played, funny, something with the nose right here. So thank you, Irie. Thank you for letting me put the period at the end of my sentence about that game.
Okay.
Fly, Eagles, fly, y'all. Fly, Eagles, fly. And did not, I mean, and let me just say this, and I want to
Right.
be politically correct. Is that the way they say it?
I don't be politically correct.
Yeah,
Did Jalen Hurts respect? Did he not look very well put together when he went into his post-game presser?
Yes, he did. I was a couple of rows from him. He looked. I mean,
he did his best Nino Brown impression. Yeah, I'll give it to him.
Yeah.
But here's my question: Why is
BS runs a marathon? Yeah, he did his best impression. I'll give it to him.
But based on that, my question is: Why is Dominique hating on him? What was that all about, guys?
I don't know.
I have no idea. Yeah, all I gotta say is Jalen Hurts is the prettiest member I've ever seen of Omega Psi Phi.
Don't hate on him. Don't hate him on
I ain't hating on him. I won't hate on the guy, but as a matter of fact, I've often in my time I've had to kind of like give a brother the benefit of the doubt. But I don't like it. Dominique Foxworth. I don't know what his problem is. Maybe maybe his girlfriend said, "Oh, I think he's cute," and all that. He got mad.
That's all it ever comes down to. You know what? And his girl probably said the same thing about Donovan McNabb and Mike Vick. Probably had a thing for Randall Cunningham back in the days. That's for that's a whole nother side of things. If you know, you know.
But that was a nice shout out you just gave to Michael Vick. You want to embellish on that for those that are not reading our crawler?
Yeah, sure. Mike Vick took the job, head coaching gig at Norfolk State University, HBCU, MEAC conference. Lovely gig. I'm very happy to see that. The one thing that people I think have to give props to Deion Sanders for, whether they want to or not, is showing that there can be success for a former player, going to an HBCU and starting a movement and then going from there with that. I'll leave everything else regarding the qualities or elements of his journey, to the side. But the fact is that Mike Vick is looking to go back home to the 757 and take up this coaching gig, which I was very happy to see. So much props to Vic doing it. And I can't wait to see what top recruits, especially top quarterbacks, want to go and learn from the legend himself. Now, to kind of switch gears, but stay within the matchup regarding Steelers and Ravens, like the Ravens, man, it almost seems like the more and more as the season goes on, and I promise I'm not trying to sound like some other implicit bias reporters that don't want to give them any props, because the Ravens are still a lovely, awesome team to watch. Love the duo of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. However, there are times within this season in which watching them play, the number of flat passes Lamar might throw, the number of times it might be a little bit more of underwhelming play, watching them lose to the Browns and from real life, where I'm just thinking like last year really was their year to some extent. Like how many teams have the privilege to say that they hosted the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game? Hosted. They made them travel to come play them.
Right.
And the way it went from there, and now it just seems like the pressure, you just wonder, are they crumbling to that pressure ahead because of the old stigmas that they're able to win the big game? Lamar's an amazing regular season quarterback, but when it comes, needed for him at the most important times, he does not show up in that sense. And like I mentioned all this, I guess, to say, could this matchup on Saturday with Pittsburgh tell us a lot more about this team ahead of playoff time? Because I don't know if the Ravens are going to win the division. They're going to have to settle for a wild card spot if they don't. Don't know how it's going to look matchup wise for them. They're not going to have the advantage like they did last year. Like, what does this matchup Saturday and their performance, win or lose versus Pittsburgh, imply a lot of what to expect and where this team is mentally going into January?
Well, if you ask me, I think this game is going to say a lot, because you heard, Jalen talking about, not Jalen, talking about Lamar talking about his mom telling him to son, you got to get and take over these games and whatnot. Lamar did that with his arm. Sunday. But it's the Giants. Everybody can beat the Giants. You, me, Sapphire, and a couple of people we know, we beat the Giants. We can get together and whoop on the Giants. So my thing at the end of the day, this game, This game is going to tell me something about this Ravens football team because this is a must. All the games they play in the recent memory of this rivalry, this is a big game for Lamar Jackson.
This is a big, very important game. I can't wait. This is so. I can't wait to just watch it. Like I can't wait to just sit in front of wherever I'm at and just enjoy it because, like you said, it's such an important game. It's so much. I mean, it's already war each time that these two teams play, and yeah, you do want to see can Lamar go in and win. You know, can they beat the Steelers? Can he get rid of those demons?
Yeah.
It's so damning when thinking about it because as great as great a team as the Ravens have been, as fun a team as they have been, when you look at it, like the Steelers have won 8 of the last 9 matchups. The last time the Ravens won was in December around this time, 2022. You know, that's the last time. It's been a long time.
Right. It's been a long time, and I think they're due. I think sometimes when you go that long, and I think there's a determination to do this in front of their fans. And I think that, you know, Lamar is really, because Lamar is not, here's the thing, we're talking about the MVP race. Lamar is not focused on the MVP race. He's got to win that game. You can be a 2-time MVP and all that. That's a beautiful thing. But at the end of the day, he's got to win that game. The running backs and Todd Monken has to bring, you know, he has to have his pencils sharpened. I know people don't use pencils anymore, but there I go again. But the thing is, that team needs to be ready. Don't get cute. Run the football. Don't get cute. Run the football and whatnot. Run that ball and get guys involved in the passing game. Lamar can't hesitate on passes and whatnot. They've got to figure out ways to get the ball to their receivers. I mean, and Justin Bateman. You know, Rashad Bateman is back. I almost called him Justin Bateman.
It's so crazy you say that with the run game, because when thinking back, Henry had 13 carries, 65 yards, and I believe 8 of those carries came in the first half. A lack of carries in the second half. That was the first glaring thing that came out to me within the Ravens loss. Not to cut you off, forgive me on that, but that's just the one thing. The one thing.
Yeah.
You got the bye week. You play the Giants. Respectfully, don't even want to count them as a legit competitor. Within these 5 games and going into the playoffs, why are you like? Shouldn't there be some kind of sense mentally thinking you're going to go in and use Derrick Henry as your workhorse to get a feel to set the tone? If anything, you ride on that before you get into anything else within the elements and schemes of their game. You run the ball with Henry. Because that's how you win in this division. That's more than likely how you can go and win versus Pittsburgh. Something that they haven't done.
Right.
In eight of the last matches with them. So I just had to get that out. Thank you. I feel the same way when I watch this team and I'm thinking, why are you not running the ball? Because I love that. I enjoy that. There's no need to try to put a pretty bow on it. Just run the ball. Right.
So we've got, that brings us to the interesting question that Billy Lib, and if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, let me apologize to you. He or she asks, what's the most important piece for the Ravens to get over the hump against the Steelers? I'm going to start with you, Irie.
Most important piece for the Ravens to get over the hump
with the Steelers.
Against the Steelers. Well, yeah. Simply put, without going into some of the other intricacies or specifics of the game, I think it's really that right there as to what I just said regarding running the game. Because the last time when these two teams played, like that was a close game. That was a really close game. And the one area in which I would have liked to see a bit more of in the second half was more carries from Henry. Like he had 8 carries, 52 yards in that first half. That let me know alone. He's getting 6.5 rushing yards every carry on average versus this Steelers run defense. And by the way, because I know that we talked quite a bit regarding this run defense right now as well too, they're still one of the best in the league. They're still allowing just around 94 rushing yards a game in the entire league. I don't see any reason for why you don't try at least, to allow Henry to exceed that himself. Because with that kind of player who has a rare ability of size and work ethic, he's fiending to get 100 himself on Pittsburgh alone. He's fiending that each time he's out there. So the fact they only had 5 second half carries the last time these two teams played, they're not sit right with me. Regardless of what the scores or wherever they were, I just would have loved to have seen that. So that's, to me, the most important piece. Get the ball to Henry, get the hell out of his way. I'll let you two take on the more gruel because I can't wait to hear on this.
So I think I have a sense of what Chris is going to respond. But Chris, what's your answer to Billy Libb's question about the most important piece for the Ravens to get over the hump against the Steelers?
I think the most important piece is consistency. It's consistency. Okay.
I like that.
What they have to do in this situation is that, one, get the first downs, run the ball, establish something consistently. The passing game has got to go. The kicking game, because that killed them in the last game. The kicking game killed them.
Okay.
And you got to be and staying away from penalties. In the win over the Giants last week, this team is still committing penalties, stupid penalties. Okay? They've got to stay. If they don't commit penalties, stick with the running game. You got to stick with the running game. Now, if Lamar can figure out a way to put points on the board, but to me, consistency is no penalties. Stop committing stupid penalties and whatnot. Okay? Number 2, run the ball. Run the ball and have a balanced attack. Okay? Lamar has to be accurate and he can't have an off day. Saturday is not the day to have an off day. Okay? Keep that offense moving. Keep Pittsburgh, play action pass. Play action, but sometimes use your pass to open up the run. Sometimes, have the Steelers, spreading out. Then stick, Derrick Henry, but they got to utilize Derrick Henry. Okay? They've got to break down this defense. Okay, they've got to figure out a way to stop, to stop Hayward and Hayward and T.J. Watt. They have got to figure out a way to neutralize those guys, but they gotta be balanced. They gotta be consistent because what lost the first game, missing field goals, penalties, staying ahead. They weren't ahead of schedule in the drives. Don't give up sacks. If it's not there, throw the ball away. They've got to be consistent. That's their missing piece and whatnot. And I think they'll beat Pittsburgh. I really do.
All right.
Okay. So I'm just going to put the period on the end of you men are absolutely right. We've been talking about the fact that Baltimore has not been consistent with utilizing Derrick Henry or their run game, right? We've been talking about how the Ravens need to clean up their penalties. They're messy, right?
Right.
Coaching stuff. For me, and I'm going to say this and use this metaphorically, you remember that head slap that Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Carter.
I'm sorry, yes. It's a mentality. Okay. You remember that right hook that Quinyon Mitchell threw in that end zone? I think that was on your end of the field because you were in the press box, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, not my end, but it was on it. It was on that end of the field. As a matter of fact, you can see my photographer from the Philadelphia Sunday Sun guy in a white hat moving out of the way as this is going on.
Okay, right.
And so what happened? And he was on national. I got to call Webster. But the thing is that, what Jalen Carter, when, some of the things that Jalen Carter did when he slapped the guy, he almost cost the Eagles a possession in that situation.
That was not going, listen, they were playing in South Philly. I'm sorry. We know this is entertainment as well. Like how the team even came out of those fisticuffs with not a single in the end zone, without a single personal foul. There was no offsetting penalties.
There were 2 penalties on Pittsburgh. They went after Pittsburgh.
That was crazy.
Mike Tomlin was not happy about that.
He shouldn't have been happy. He shouldn't have been happy. But I submit to you, that is the same fire that was absent on the field for the Steelers. And the point, going back to Billy Lib's question, is that's the type of mentality that the Steelers need to remember that their brand was built on when they go to Baltimore. So, I mean, for me, it literally is a mentality, right? The Steelers, the Ravens, they have to decide who has the most testosterone. And I mean that with all due respect. This is a brutal sport. The winners of these games are dictating their will on their opponents. So, separate from the run game, separate from cleaning up the penalties, right? For me, Billy Lib, the most important piece for the Ravens is to have that mentality. The Steelers are coming into my house, our house. They are not leaving here, first of all, on 2 feet, and they're not winning with the dub. It's the AFC North, gentlemen.
I'm inspired by that. Now I want to go out and hit somebody.
I'm just saying.
I don't know who I'm going to hit, but I feel like I want to get out there and just tackle somebody and just run that football through a brick wall. Of course, I can get a concussion from that and possibly get knocked out. But in that situation, the Ravens have got to just go in there with clubs, so to speak, and just beat the Steelers upside the head. Heck, even start the fight. I'll take a 15-yard penalty to establish some sense of physicality. Sometimes you gotta start the fight first.
Yeah, think back to last year, and when KC went there, Kelsey's moving the kickers, stand in the end zone. Every time a kicker went back through, he went back. Disruptive.
80% mental, 20% physical.
This is what I'm saying.
Right.
There's no way the Steelers should walk out of that stadium with a victory on Sunday. There's no way.
Yeah, well, it reminds me with Stephon Diggs when he was at Maryland and they were playing Penn State, and he refused to shake any of the Penn State players' hands. And and of course, I love that because I hate Penn State. But the thing is, you got to have that mentality that you're gonna go out there. You're going to stop your opponent. It's like boxing. You're going to go out there, and I'm going to knock this guy out. I have every intention to knock this guy into next week, and you got to, at some point, get out there and do it. Because at the end of the day, that's where they're going to win this game. But my thing is you can't go up big and then let them back in the game. They got to go and dominate them. They got to come into that game where they have to dominate the Steelers, and they gotta let the Steelers know that, hey, look, you're not coming in here. You're not gonna come in here and try to luck out a game. Because that first game, the Steelers kind of, they took advantage of the Ravens' mistakes and the fact that Justin Tucker, I'm hoping Justin Tucker has been working in practice, kicking them long field goals and all that.
Justin Tucker, you have to beat the lost allegations. I beg of you. I'm sorry, Chris. I just had to get that out there.
Yeah. I mean, Justin Tucker lost 2 games, the Steelers game and the Eagles game. And I think that had he hit those field goals, that game and the Eagles game and the Steelers, if he hits those 2 field goals in the Steelers game, the Ravens win the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy right now. I don't, I think that's another to dive into as well regarding Tucker, because right now, Justin Tucker, right now, it's 19 of 27 field goals,
right?
8 misses, 3rd in the NFL. What is it with one? As much as we in the eyes well talking about the mentality or regarding what this means or what this implies from the performance of Lamar or from the coaching staff, Justin Tucker, what does this performance, whatever he has, says about him ahead of the playoffs, because of the fact he has not been the best kicker alive or lived up to those standards right now. He hasn't been as consistent as he has been.
So let me ask you this, Irie, right? When you look at his stats, when you say he's ranked third, like, are you also looking at the number of overall attempts, right, compared to made field goals or extra points as well?
Yeah.
Because I say that because if your kicker is being put in situations where he has to kick more than whatever the average is, and then is missing those kicks, I mean, how do you, it's a play on numbers is what I'm trying to say. And I think for me, most importantly, is the Baltimore Ravens, with all of the talent they have, especially at that quarterback position, their running game, they have, to me, above average receivers. We really shouldn't be talking about the kicker very much, right?
Right.
I'm just saying, you know, they are putting him in situations that, to me, say the offensive play calling failed and or the execution of it.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I would concur with that, because you really don't want the game to come down to field goal kickers. And the offense, this is why I say consistency, to answer Billy Libb's question. Consistency. If you've got to kick those field goals, stop shooting yourself with penalties. Stop missing open guys. You know, get the ball downfield. Don't hold on to the ball long. If there is an opening and you can take it, take it. Okay? But you got to be consistent. You got to basically keep that defense off balance. Sapphire, we all, and Irie, we talk about balance. You have to be balanced on offense. And you have to be effectively balanced, not just run for the sake of running. But if you get 4 and 5 yards on first down, then you can open up the playbook, play action, and do anything you want. Manipulate the defense in any way you can. And that's the goal. That has to be the goal there. That has to be the goal to do that, because right now, and like I say, getting over that hump also is in between, the ears. They've got to go out there, and especially in Lamar. Lamar's got to come out Saturday. I'm going to, he's got to come out and say, which one of these guys are the referees, because I'm going to kill the other guys. That's how you have to come out. That's how you're going to have to come out here in this game. Because I think, like I say, I think the Ravens owe the Steelers a butt whipping. They owe the Steelers an arse kicking.
They do. They do. And real quick, I agree as well, Savary, but only to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why, with all due respect. Number one, like, the job of the kicker is to bail out the offense. And I understand where you're coming from regarding the play calling being questionable, where you put your kicker in that situation, because I would feel the same way at times with the Browns, which I know we'll get to in a bit. Because there were times which I'm thinking, you're barely getting any yards. There was a point in time, now I don't think anymore, but a long time during the season in which they ranked last in yards per play. So there were times in which they rarely somehow got past the logo, and then they were stooped around the 30, 35, 30-yard line. Then that would leave for a field goal over 40 plus for Dustin Hopkins, who, by the way, ties right now for the most missed field goals right now in the NFL at 9. However, that's Dustin Hopkins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is just Justin Tucker. This isn't anything different regarding the amount of field goals that he's taking within by the range right now. Like, he's taking 9 field goals right now that range from 50 to 59 yards, deep, right? The most that he's had in a single season was 14. If anything, if the season ended today, he would tie for the 4th most, field goals taken attempts within that range. Within 40 to 49 is actually a little bit lower, because he's only taking 8 right now. He's taking way more within the season. So I mentioned that to say, while there is questions regarding the play calling and why is it that Tucker has to kick where he is right now, it's also not anything new, because he's been doing this his entire career. And the reason why the bar is so high is because he's consistently delivered from wherever on the field. Okay. You go back even a few seasons back. Was it Detroit when he made that 63-yarder for the win? Like it was only him that was making these kind of kicks. So that's why you hear people talking the way they are about him, because of the fact that we haven't seen this kind of play. I don't even want to call it a drop off. I don't even want to call it that. If anything, I'll just call it a slump. I'll just call it a little few game stinker, because we've seen other stinkers and slumps from other kickers, within the NFL throughout our lifetime. So that's where I come from with that. Hopefully, I speculate, clarify that well.
Look, I respect that. Okay. And you had me at bail out. Okay. And because he's got to be at least what, 30, 33, 34, 35-ish. Like that then takes me to on the organizational level.
35 right now, yeah.
Right? And we talked about what the average age of the NFL kickers are, like almost 10 years.
Right.
His junior, like that's on the Baltimore Ravens for saying, okay, not only are we putting our kicker, who's probably going to go down as one of the NFL's best kickers all-time history, we're putting him in situations at an advanced age. And do they have anybody, Chris, in the pipeline they're looking at that you
not that I know of off the top of my head? No. And
you're trying to make a run to the Super Bowl like this?
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. Here's how the Ravens probably look at this. I think that maybe this is the case of the yips. Everybody goes through slumps. 3-point shooters go through slumps and everything. 300 hitters will tend to go through slumps in baseball. I think in the case of Justin Tucker, this might just be a slump. I'm sure he's the type of guy who's been working on it. Maybe he's hurt or something like that. Maybe they found some mysterious, thing in his gait or something like that. The way he's carrying himself. I don't know what that is.
Here's the fandom, Irie. Here's the fandom. Okay.
But here's the fan. Well, I don't know what that is, but it happens. Yips and all that. But he's got to get it together, and he has to figure it out. I think he's a professional.
Yes.
He's collecting that big paycheck. You're right. He's
a professional, and he'll figure it out. I just think the man's in a slump and whatnot. Is it maybe you should always look to get better. You should always look to get better with another kicker, because kickers go through slumps like that. I just hope they're around in the playoffs long enough, or hang around these games long enough, so when he does get it together, because Tucker's the type of kicker who I think he may be in a slump, and then he'll hit about 10 to 15, 20 in a row.
We hope he comes out of his slump, because I can't imagine what Ravens Nation would think if you're really in the playoffs and you have to rely on a 35-year-old leg at longer distances. It's real. It's mother time. It happens to everyone, right? So that's the thing. That's the thing that I think that for me, when you think about their areas of vulnerability, that's number one.
Beautiful. Wow. Real quick, I just realized we've almost spoken an entire hour just within these two teams alone. It's beautiful. It's well deserved. That's what it's about. However, I do think it is right to stick within the title of the show relating to the entire division. So, any final remarks before we dive into the other two less important teams within the division?
Ravens got to be consistent. They win on Sunday. If they're consistent and Lamar is on his game, they win easily.
All right, Sapphire.
No, because I'll get agitated with the most recent episode of in-season HBO Hard Knocks, specifically with the Cleveland Browns. So no, sir.
We will just leave that to me. I'll take that for you. I'll take the burden.
Thank you.
I already did that, so hopefully you don't have to go through that.
I get cranky. I get cranky, Irie. Thank you for pulling me back. Yes,
I got you. So the Bengals, the better of Paul Brown's offsprings in shorter terms. They've won 2 games in a row. Something I think they have not been able to say since beating the Giants and Browns in consecutive weeks between week 6 and week 7. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty nice to see. It's good to see them on the winning side again, because for long And I would usually keep tally of how many of their losses, which was usually close, were one-score games in which they were just unable to excel at the little things, and their defense would let them down in the end. But guess what? They won too. And the most recent win was a pretty good win, I'd say, over Tennessee, a game in which they really did have, at least after the first period, the pace and the control of the game in their hands. 17 of the 37 came in the second period alone. Thoughts within this game and where we're seeing right now, like just seeing the way that this team is gelling from top to bottom and it's resulting in wins. Because that's the thing, right? Like we always saw the gelling from this team, but when it results in a win, then of course it's different. So, any thoughts within this, and like, is there a possibility that we're seeing this team finally get it together to be able to somehow, some way sneak into a wild card spurt?
You know, I was thinking about this myself, and it's curious, right? Because they're still in the hunt, right? And to the points that you just made about them coming together, putting together consecutive wins, when you think about their last 3 games and contrast the strength of that schedule to the Ravens, to the Steelers, I submit to you that the Bengals have the clearest path to win their next 2 games as well. And so depending on the outcome of the Ravens, Steelers, and the rest of their season, things could get really tight in the AFC North.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. Yeah, I think you said it. I mean, wait a minute, because we talked about it like last week as well too, ahead of this game. And I remember you asking me, like, what do I see record wise? I'm thinking they can probably win these next few games going into Pittsburgh. So they've already beaten Dallas, they've beaten Tennessee. Not to get ahead of myself, I expect a couple more wins versus Cleveland and Denver, and then you go into Pittsburgh, and then in the final regular season game, things will be tight in the division.
And remind me, is that an away game for the Bengals versus the Steelers?
It is, because they hosted Pittsburgh the first time, and the Steelers came in and won that game. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's curious, and don't let JJ be hurt. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
So, I mean, Chris, what are your thoughts on the Bengals?
Well, the Bengals, if Zach Taylor wants to keep his job, they got to win. And I think that the Bengals is going to take their defense to do it. I can't tell much playing a poor Tennessee team, okay? But I do think that the Bengals are going to have to win out. If they win out and don't make the playoffs, I mean, I guess you keep the coach if you win out. But they might go in another direction if they don't. And I think at the end of the day, the Bengals have every shot to win it and everything. And I think if they get their defense, because their offense is going to score points, they just got to get their defense to help them win these games, because that's the issue. And that's why I think Zach Taylor's job might be on the line, because this was supposed to be a Super Bowl contending team. This was supposed to be a team that was competing for a Super Bowl, and they're not there. They ain't there yet. They're not there, and they won't be there. That's the problem. They won't be in the playoffs for very long if they don't shore up their defense. But they got to win. They got to win out. They got to go to a Zen philosopher, then go win. Go do that. But they've got to win out.
Indeed. Okay. I feel we got enough within that. And last but not least within the division, Sapphire's favorite, the Cleveland Browns. I'll take the burden within this. Sapphire, you can go and if you got to go, use the restroom, go grab some water or something. Me and Chris got you. We don't want you. We would not want to see you crash out live on the show. All right, there we go. All right, Chris, you and I, pal. Let's talk Browns, buddy. Yeah. Another loss. They fall to 3-11. They're already eliminated from the playoffs. A 21-7 loss to the defending champions, Kansas City Chiefs. Not that this is the game that we expected them to win. However, even with low expectations, they just somehow find a way to lower it even more. 6 turnovers and 6 giveaways in this game. 4 of those interceptions, 3 of those came from Jameis Winston, the other one from Dorian Thompson-Robinson. 2 of those were fumbles. You knew the game. You knew they were in for something because the fact that Kansas City got the ball to start the game and their first series is 3-and-out. Solid start from Cleveland defensively. They punt the ball off. James Prochet the second fumbles the return after taking his first couple steps. And from there, Kansas City gets the ball by 21 yards away from the end zone. And the rest was history.
Indicative of their year. It's indicative of a bad season. God bless Jameis Winston. He gave them some moments, but Jameis Winston, we reverted back to I'm going to shoot you in the game and I'm going to shoot you out the game.
Yeah, this is like, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jameis football. It sucks because I really don't want to speak about it within this sense, but the guy has 13 touchdowns, 12 picks. You ask me, he should have 12 more picks than what he has right now. But a number of times in which those passes that should have been picks were dropped.
That was in the Ravens game. Yeah.
This is the third. You know what else is crazy? When talking about Jameis right now, this is the third game this season alone. This season, he literally just starting for the Browns week 8 versus Baltimore, like you said. This is the third game this season in which he's had a hat trick in the interceptions genre. The third game this season. And his 15th career game with 3 or more interceptions in a game. What you see is what you get. It seems almost every pass with him is a coin flip.
Yeah. No, you're right. I can't defend Jameis. I watched him as a rookie when he didn't have that penchant for interceptions. But now it's like he just can't. He reminds me, who was this guy's name? Tony. He was a quarterback for the Ravens. During that 2000, during that 2000 season, and I can't think of his last name, but this guy.
Wait, are you talking about Dilfer?
Not Dilfer. It was a black quarterback. Tony. What's his?
Banks.
Yeah.
Toby, say it again.
Banks.
Yeah, Tony Banks. That's right. Tony Banks, Michigan State.
Like week 6, right?
Right. He would throw. He never met an opposing team's jersey he didn't like and whatnot. And so my thing is that you can't, and Jameis, you can't have that. And I think maybe Jameis would be a good backup somewhere and whatnot. Maybe he needs to be with somebody to help him work on his game, not throwing picks and everything. I don't know. He wants Jesus to help him, and I do think that Jesus can help anybody with the passing game and whatnot. And I think, and I'm not trying to make folly of religion here, but at the same time, it's kind of like he just throws interceptions, and I don't know if it's just because of lack of hard work. I think he's trying, but
yes, he is, but it doesn't work regarding him. It's not even so much for them going to the specifics regarding him telegraphing passes or his body 90-degree angle, however his footwork is, however much more within the force that he's throwing at.
Right.
It comes down also to the simple fact that this has always been his style of play, and it's led to good things. It's led to national championship in college. It's led to the Heisman. It's led to being the number 1 overall pick. It's led to finding a way to stay in the league. It's also led to moments like this where we have to speak about him within this state. Not to spend too much longer within this state, because we mentioned that Jameis has said, he hopes and prays the Lord delivers him from pick 6. So guess what? He's not benched, but now he's the backup. Dorian Thompson-Robinson will be starting. Sapphire likes to call him Bambi because, as she says, he is stature-wise petite and just needs to get.
He's too petite. Too petite is exactly what I said, Ivory.
You talking about DTR?
Correct. Yes, he will be starting Sunday versus Cincinnati. And what I thought was interesting is I just thought it was very ironic because week 7, when Watson was still a lot. I'm sorry, not alive. When he was still healthy, and he's going in playing Cincinnati, he was the starter. James Winston was dinged off the active roster. It was DTR that was made to be the backup, and he said it was for matchup purposes. You would think James was going in starting, but after the tournament stuff, now they're taking him out and putting his DTR in. I thought if it confirms the matchup angle that they had in mind regarding playing DTR versus Cincinnati, because it's not like he's played since then or before that,
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. What they're trying to do with the quarterback position at this time of the year. Jameis is done. They got about 3 or 4 games left. They got to figure out in that period of time whether or not they're going to keep DTR and help to develop him, or if they're going to let him go. I mean, it's that simple. And then try to get maybe get Shador, work out a trade where they can get Shador Sanders or the kid Gabriel from Oregon or whoever is out there. They have got to or Cam Ward out of Miami. They've got to find what they have in DTR. DTR, when he was at UCLA, showed a lot of flashes of brilliance and a lot of promise. Now that they're going to empower him with the keys to the car and whatnot, then he has to show that he's going to make his mark in this situation. He's got 3 or 4 weeks to show, and if he does, because that's going to determine what they do in April in the draft. It's going to determine whether or not when they go to the Senior Bowl, because I think the consensus is they need a new starting quarterback. Now, are they going to hang on to Deshaun Watson? Because that's another thing that they're going to have to talk about moving forward. Because Deshaun Watson's contract is the 500-pound gorilla in the room and whatnot. And
there was a report recently saying that they were looking to continue with him. That is in the air right now. Not much has been confirmed. It probably won't be until the end of the season, really. But
so they're going to bring Deshaun Watson back, you think?
This is what I think they're going to say that. I don't know if they're going to do that, but I expect them to say that at season's end, within the exit interviews.
I'm shaking my head. $50 million. Oh, my Jesus. Here we go. I tried, Irie. I really tried. I tried so hard, right?
Right.
I mean, if the Browns would just do what common sense says, you pay this man and guarantee him all that money, and then you don't put the assets around him to create a offense where he can thrive in, why wouldn't they continue with him, not bring him back? He's already there. Okay.
Right.
This is, I just don't understand this. I mean, for Pete's sake.
And Deshaun Watson is still a good quarterback. That's the thing. No matter what happened this season, Irie, am I correct? He still has ability, but I'm going to agree with you. Huh?
I was saying, yeah, you both are. I too still, part of me still wants to give him the benefit of the doubt.
And I think he needs to find a coach. They need to hire a coach that can help him develop his skills and help him, get the pieces around. He's got some good receivers there, but they've got to figure out a way that he uses his mobility, that he uses his arm and all that, and that he is in a system that he's comfortable with. Because I've seen what this guy can do. I've been watching him.
Yeah,
he can play. Yeah. He can still play, and that's the thing that that's the thing that bothers me, is the fact that I don't like when coaches try to take a guy and try to jam their system on him instead of finding something that's user friendly for that quarterback.
Yeah, and I agree regarding him being a good quarterback, because I'm not going to sit here and act like his play on the field has been terrible as a tight end in Cleveland. No, there was a lot of promise and potential just off of his second season alone. I do think he rushed back too quickly within a shoulder injury. I do think there's pressure from the inside and outside that led him to come in a little quickly. But still, like there was such promise within some of those games that year. Like third game of the season versus Tennessee, 81.8 completion percentage, second highest in a single game in his career. The triumphant second half comeback versus Baltimore. Like he shows the promise, Chris, to where he can be that kind of player and starting quarterback, to really make it happen for this team. So I don't know what's happened this season outside of his personal life and stuff that I would assume affect him on the field. I don't actually what am I kidding? I feel like I know, but I just don't want to believe it regarding what happened this season with this schematically and other elements of what we're talking about within the inside of it. The last thing that I will mention regarding the Browns, sadly, Nick Chubb was confirmed to have a broken foot per Kevin Stefanski. Somebody else who I felt returned a little quickly this season, Sapphire. I'm sure you feel the same way within that. I wonder if his injury will impact their decision come draft time.
They were already going to explore, in my mind, going to explore, running backs in the next draft. Right. Now, I don't know about position, but yeah, I mean, I've talked about this in previous weeks. When I listen to some of the Cleveland sports media, they've already written him off. He'll never be the Nick Chubb of old days, right? So I'm a believer, and this is probably why I would never be a good general manager. I don't want to do the dangling carrot routine. If my players have shown they're passionate about representing my brand, okay, I'm going to be proactive with contracts. And I'm also not going to rush them back, right, after they've had severe injuries. Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson, okay, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to keep permit my man of the year candidate, Denzel Ward, to go back on that field again this year after the number of concussions that he has, had, his injuries, because they gave him a big contract too. I mean, this is not about, for me in this moment, the players proving themselves anymore. They are what they are. They perform the way that they did. So I want my workhorses to have some type of cover and go into this offseason with that bitter taste in their mouth, right? And I don't know what the rules are with the players union and all of that, but we have seen firsthand the result of not having consistent, Chris, a consistent off the field regiments. These men were not in shape. They were physically, mentally, and lastly, I'll say, I'm really looking forward to understanding who the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns is going to be, as well as the general manager.
Yeah, that's where it's going to start, right there. That's where it has to start. They need a new coach. They really do need to.
Yes, they do.
All right. On that note, well, I think it's time for prediction.
Okay.
All right. So, we're pretty much talked about it quite a bit, but the easiest thing is, that all these people.
Yes, I need that. I need that Carnac magnificent. I need to receive. This has been sealed on Funkin' Waggle's porch and whatnot. Decision, prediction. Well, I predict the Ravens are going to beat the Steelers upside their head, and maybe that's my fandom. But I believe that the Ravens go to Steelers, big butt whooping, and I think they're going to beat them. It might be a close game, but I think Ravens win on Saturday.
Okay, you got the Ravens. I have the Steelers. I see a way in which their matchup is still going to be overwhelming, and they're going to win 9 of the last 10 matchups officially come Saturday. And TJ Watt will find a way in which to return, however that may be, legal or illegal. And they take out any anger and fight from this loss to Philly and take it out on Baltimore. Sapphire.
I'm going to agree with you. Despite JJ's injury, I mean, they still have their full complement of linemen there. I'm thinking Heisman. I'm thinking Herbig, right? So for that reason and more. I think they're going to present a little differently on the D side, but nothing else changes in the other aspects of the game. So I'm picking the Steelers.
All right. And then lastly, Browns-Bengals. I'm going with the Bengals. They're hungry. They're still going for a playoff spot. I assume you two agree.
Bengals, you know.
All right.
More.
Sapphire Space says it all. All three for Bengals. All right. Thank you all for joining us again for another edition of the Fear the North podcast. We appreciate you all tuning with us. I know it's past 10 o'clock Eastern time, probably a little later elsewhere for wherever you guys are within the country. At the same time, please like, subscribe, share, repost, our work, our content. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We want to give you guys the best as possible every week. You can follow us on X and on Blue Sky. You see at the bottom, it's going to be at Fear the North 4, the number 4, not spell it out for, but the number. We're starting out. It's our first season, man. We building up, and with more and more of you guys coming in and tuning in, we'll be able to build up and do even more. And to a point in which maybe, somehow, some way, we start selling some of these lovely mugs.
Right. The mugs, people. The mugs.
At some point, maybe we get to that with the merch. We can start selling some mugs, start selling some hoodies with Fear the North on it, because we love this and we love yous. And we love being here every week to talk about the best division in the NFL. So, thank you all again. Once again, I'm Myrie Harris, Sapphire, Chris Murray. And, that's all. 3 outs. Deuces. Adios. Ciao.
Bias Candio.
All that good stuff.
Hospidonia.
Excellent. Love you guys.
Love you. RP Bozo. Love you. We're out.